What's up, basketball fans? A major controversy is brewing, and it's not on the court this time. A conservative columnist has taken aim at the media, accusing them of a double standard in their coverage of Caitlin Clark's terrifying stalker ordeal. The columnist drew comparisons to an earlier incident involving one of Angel Reese's teammates, and the stark contrast in public outrage is raising eyebrows. Is there a bias at play, or are these two cases just worlds apart? Let's break it down. There was a man from Texas who traveled to Indianapolis. He's been arrested he's alleged to have stalked Caitlin Clark and sent her threatening text messages and the like, just a gross situation all around. And Michael Lewis is the guy's name. Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever superstar, recently endured a terrifying experience when a stalker, 55-year-old Michael Thomas Lewis, sent her disturbing messages and drove across multiple states to be closer to her. His chilling message, "Been driving around your house 3x a day, but don't call the law just yet," left no room for doubt about his intentions. The situation escalated to the point where the FBI became involved, and Lewis was arrested in Indianapolis on charges of felony stalking. If convicted, he faces up to 6 years in prison. While law enforcement acted swiftly, the incident left Clark and her fans shaken. Despite the seriousness of the case, media coverage has been relatively muted. While some outlets have reported on it, there hasn't been the widespread outrage or public discourse one might expect for an athlete of Clark's stature. The conservative columnist at the center of this controversy believes this silence is indicative of a larger issue in how women's safety is prioritized, and how different athletes are treated by the media. The columnist's critique hinges on a comparison to a past situation involving one of Angel Reese's college teammates at LSU. In that case, a public altercation and subsequent fallout garnered significant media attention and public debate. The incident, while serious, was not life-threatening, yet it dominated headlines for weeks. The columnist pointed out how the media pounced on the LSU story, dissecting every detail and even dragging Reese into the narrative despite her tangential connection to the event. Because, unfortunately, there are a lot of cuckoos out there. And unfortunately, with the internet, there is easier access to almost anyone. In contrast, the coverage of Clark's stalker case has been subdued, raising questions about the consistency in how women athletes' stories are covered. For many, this comparison underscores a troubling disparity. Why did a less severe incident spark widespread outrage, while Clark's terrifying ordeal has been met with relative silence? The columnist argues that this discrepancy reveals a bias in how media outlets choose to amplify certain stories over others, potentially influenced by the personalities and public perceptions of the athletes involved. The conservative columnist's critique directly called out the media's apparent bias in covering stories involving women athletes, raising valid concerns about how narratives are shaped. When Caitlin Clark's stalker case broke, it had all the elements of a high-stakes story: harassment, danger, and the involvement of a superstar athlete. Yet, the coverage it received was strikingly subdued. The columnist argued that media outlets prioritize stories that are sensational, dramatic, or controversial, often at the expense of more serious issues. In Caitlin Clark's case, her reputation as a humble, focused athlete may have worked against her. Without an outspoken or polarizing persona, her story lacked the viral factor that often drives media attention. So prior to placing him into custody, police met with Lewis last week about the threats along with his presence in Indianapolis, and he said that he was in the city for a vacation and described his messages as a fantasy-type thing. In stark contrast, incidents involving athletes like Angel Reese or her LSU teammates tend to dominate headlines, even when the situations are less serious. Reese, who has cultivated an unapologetic and confident public image, often finds herself at the center of debates, whether about her celebratory gestures or her outspoken comments. The columnist implied that this dynamic may reflect a preference for covering athletes who generate controversy, even if the stories themselves are less impactful. This disparity in coverage raises important questions about the media's responsibility. Should journalists and outlets focus on stories that prioritize athlete safety and well-being, or should they chase clicks by amplifying controversies? The columnist's critique suggests that the current approach fails to provide balanced coverage, leaving athletes like Clark without the public support they deserve. Moreover, the muted response to Clark's case may discourage other athletes from speaking out about similar experiences. If the media and public fail to rally around high-profile figures like Clark, what message does that send to less visible athletes who face harassment? This is a systemic issue that requires a re-evaluation of how we approach stories in women's sports. The columnist's comparison between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese isn't just about media coverage, it's a window into deeper societal issues. Personality, race, and public perception all play significant roles in shaping how athletes are treated and supported, both by the media and by the public. Caitlin Clark, often praised for her work ethic and quiet leadership, represents a more traditional image of a star athlete. Her reserved demeanor and focus on the game have earned her respect, but may have also made her less newsworthy in the eyes of some media outlets. In contrast, Angel Reese's bold and outspoken personality frequently puts her in the spotlight, for better or worse. The columnist argued that this difference in public perception contributes to the disparity in coverage. Reese's willingness to engage in debates and challenge norms makes her a magnet for attention, while Clark's quieter approach can leave her overlooked in moments that demand advocacy. This isn't to say that one approach is better than the other. Both athletes bring unique qualities to the sport, but the media's tendency to favor controversy over substance creates an uneven playing field. Race is another factor that complicates this dynamic. As a black athlete, Reese faces a different set of expectations and challenges compared to Clark, a white athlete. The columnist acknowledged that while Reese's outspokenness often draws criticism, it also drives engagement and amplifies her platform. Clark, meanwhile, may benefit from being perceived as non-threatening, but this same perception may contribute to the lack of urgency in covering her Stalker case. This double standard isn't limited to Clark and Reese, it's a reflection of broader societal biases. Be careful of what you are constantly sharing online, and Caitlin is someone who seems to be very private online, and I think she's doing that, one, because she seems to just be like a ball is life type of girl, and she's just ball is life and golf is life sometimes, and so she's really just only sharing that element of her. The columnist's critique highlights the need for greater equity in how we support and advocate for women athletes, regardless of their personality, race, or public image. The Caitlin Clark Stalker case is more than just a media story. It's a stark reminder of the real dangers faced by public figures, particularly women athletes. The muted response to Clark's ordeal raises critical questions about how society prioritizes women's safety and what more can be done to protect athletes from harassment and violence. Athletes like Clark live in the public eye, with their schedules, appearances, and even personal lives often easily accessible. This level of visibility makes them uniquely vulnerable to stalking and harassment, as evidenced by the actions of Michael Thomas Lewis. While the FBI and local law enforcement acted swiftly to address Clark's situation, the broader system needs to do more to prevent these incidents from occurring in the first place. The conservative columnist's critique challenges not just the media but also the sports industry to take a more proactive role in addressing these issues. Teams, leagues, and governing bodies must prioritize player safety, implementing measures such as enhanced security protocols, stricter penalties for harassment, and better mental health support for athletes dealing with these challenges. Additionally, the lack of public outrage over Clark's case underscores the need for stronger advocacy within the sports community. High-profile incidents like this should spark widespread conversations about the risks athletes face and the resources they need to feel safe and supported. The columnist's comparison to Angel Reese's teammate highlights how the media and public can amplify certain stories while neglecting others, creating a dangerous precedent for how women's safety is valued. Ultimately, this controversy isn't just about Clark or Reese, it's about systemic change. The sports world, media, and society at large need to recognize the unique challenges faced by women athletes and work together to create an environment where their safety, well-being, and dignity are prioritized. Clark's case is a wake-up call, and the question now is whether it will lead to meaningful action or be dismissed as just another headline. Caitlin Clark's Stalker case and the conservative columnist's critique have sparked important conversations about media bias, public perception, and the treatment of women athletes. From comparisons to Angel Reese's teammate's situation to deeper issues of safety and equity, this controversy highlights the need for systemic change in sports and society. What's your take on this debate? Is the media guilty of a double standard, or are these cases too different to compare? But Caitlin Clark has been the center of so many different conversations for months. She has been the talk of the sports world and beyond. Basically every day she was, for months. And those conversations went to all kinds of crazy places.